Good evening, everybody, and welcome to FamilyKind's webinar series for co-parents. I'm so happy to be here tonight with all of you. My name is Lesley Friedland, and I'm the Executive Director of FamilyKind. I'm also very thrilled to be joined here by my colleagues, Nancy Nybergh and Ellen Tanner, who will be facilitating tonight's webinar.
Hi, everybody. This is Ellen.
Good evening, folks. This is Nancy.
Great. We have a full program tonight, but we will also have an opportunity for you to ask questions through the Q&A feature. So during the program, if you have any questions, please write them in that area. I would also like to thank our sponsors because without them, we couldn't bring you this programming. First, we have SoberLink. SoberLink supports accountability for sobriety and child safety, combining a breathalyzer with facial recognition and wireless connectivity for real-time results and reports. SoberLink has a new program, the Family Assistance Program, and they offer alcohol monitoring free of charge to anyone who qualifies. By increasing their total reach in their mission of supporting families affected by alcohol abuse, this program will help continue to reduce litigation and foster peace of mind. For more information about the Family Assistance Program, just go to SoberLink's website. I would also like to thank our sponsor, Murray Public Relations. We thank Patty Murray as she's our tech guru, and Murray Public Relations provides a variety of services, including hosting webinars, conducting special events, and all communication needs. So that's Murray Public Relations. The focus of the webinar tonight is that complaints are normal, and especially during this COVID pandemic. Today, we will emphasize that people can only control their own behavior, not our co-parents or the judge's behavior or societal challenges that we're all facing every day. But we can influence situations. Therefore, we will focus on things we can't control, things we can't, and to know what's appropriate in situations. I'm going to read a poem to start off the content of this webinar. This poem is written by William Stafford, and it is called A Ritual to Read to Each Other. If you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in the world. And following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. For there is many a small betrayal in the mind, a shrug that lets the fragile sequence break, sending with shouts the horrible errors of childhood, storming out to play through the broken dike. And as elephants parade holding each other's tail, but if one wanders, the circus won't find the park. I call it cruel, and maybe the root of cruelty to know what occurs, but not recognize the fact. And so I appeal to a voice, to something shadowy, a remote important region in all who talk. Though we could fool each other, we should consider lest the parade of our mutual life gets lost in the dark. For it is important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no, or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep.
Oh, Lesley, that's a great poem. You know, it really lets us see that we are all connected. We may not be married or together as a couple anymore, but we're still connected as forever parents. If we let our breakdowns disconnect us from our co-parents, or in this case, the elephants, then we may end up off track. That can have significant unintended and undesired consequences. Yes, our webinar tonight is an opportunity to explore how to stay connected, even with our many and valid complaints.
Lesley, Ellen, that's a great interpretation of that poem, connection. Very important. I think another word that stood out to me in that poem was about being awake, because I think that is really very important when it comes to complaints and complaining, which is our topic tonight. And there certainly is a lot to complain about during this time. You know, the impact that the pandemic has had on people and their family life, including kids at home and homeschooling, or maybe people are out of work or trying to figure out how do they balance their working from home and school with the kids, financial worries, and maybe even balancing agreements that you have with your co-parent while keeping safety in mind, as well as other societal things that are happening today. You know, think about it. How often do we complain? You might be surprised. Turns out, on average, we complain at minimum 15 times a day, and sometimes as much as 30. According to Stanford University, complaining can actually rewire our brains towards negativity, especially if we repeatedly complain. So can complaining be effective? Well, turns out, yes, it can. It depends how you complain and if you are complaining to the right person. The first is that most people usually are complaining about something that they do not have control over, as Lesley said earlier in the beginning of the webinar. So, you know, maybe you're had enough of staying at home, or, you know, maybe the other co-parent is not on the same page as you are about how homework needs to be done. Or perhaps a judge didn't see your perspective and you're wondering, how could that be when it was so clear to you what was going on? So the first thing you want to do to help make complaints effective is to make sure you're addressing your concerns to the right person and in a respectful manner. Many people complain to others that have no connection at all to your concern. So speaking to the right person is a good start, but it doesn't guarantee an outcome that you will like. However, you may be able to exert some influence when you talk it out with that right person and communicate in the same way that you would want to be spoken to. Second is, sometimes you can't express your concerns to the right person, and this may build up inside of you, you know, such as a judge that you don't agree with, or how do you talk to this virus? You will need to find a way to manage that stress. First, it's good to acknowledge how you feel, and then do what will help you find balance or return you to some homeostasis or equanimity. You know, maybe that's breathing, maybe doing some exercise, being in nature, whatever it is for you. I know for me, it's meditating, and we'll talk a little bit about that towards the end. Third thing you want to do is avoid blame. Many complaints have a blame component to it. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's very loud. In other words, your life would be so much better if something outside of you would change. For example, if the judge would see things your way, or the parent would get on the same page as you regarding schoolwork. This is about responsibility, owning that responsibility for yourself, what you can control and what you can take care of. You are accountable for your own reactions and behaviors. You cannot control the other person's behaviors or feelings. When you recognize that, you can empower yourself to find another way. Finally, you want to find a way to voice your concerns constructively so to be heard, but also able to listen to the feedback after your complaint has been logged to the right person. Or whenever someone might have a complaint to you. This is really key to be able to negotiate.
You know, in order to negotiate, Nancy, I agree with you. We need to use our voice in a constructive way, which does mean being respectful. It's also important that when we complain for action that will help resolve what it is that we're complaining about. We don't want to only vent. That doesn't lead us anywhere. In a previous webinar, we discussed stop, look, and listen, where we stop and take a pause, where we look to ourselves for our options that we can consider. And then we listen to that little voice inside each of us that is the best version of ourselves. Sometimes when we vent our complaints, we get derailed from solutions, yet when we complain for action, we can solve those long-held or even recent challenges. This can lead to exceptional growth and resolutions and break negative patterns. So what gets in the way of us being able to do that? Well, let me read to you. No one is listening. Everyone is simply advocating and defending. There is little shared understanding. There is little respect. People feel excluded. Trust levels are low. Time is a pressure. There's other things that get in the way. But our question that we might want to live with is, what can we do to create an environment for trust for a meaningful conversation? And how can we foster that trust?
Yeah, those are some things that certainly do get in the way. And I want to bring up one more thing that can get in the way of trust, and to go back to blame. You know, when we become fixated on something being another person's fault, we really lose our ability to do something about it. In other words, when we blame, the only way a situation could be, let's say, fixed is for that other person to do something about it, meaning to stop or start doing something that will give you what you want and is making your life miserable right now. Well, why do we blame? Well, first, it's pretty easy to do. It shifts the problem onto someone else, and that is very easy. It's much harder to face ourselves. And doing that can make us feel very vulnerable. And a lot of times, it's not a good feeling to feel vulnerable, but then we don't understand any part that we may bring to the complaint and what we would be able to do something about. Second thing about blaming is that it can become contagious. So once we blame someone, then the other person may experience that as an attack and then blame you back. And this just escalates things. It also means that we might also blame ourselves. This is not to say that we might not have accountability in something, but when we blame ourselves or others, we are judging them to be wrong, which can elicit shame. Shame is disconnecting, withdrawing, and closing down. When we blame, we give up any responsibility, and thus we are unable to reflect and grow. We are all humans and we make mistakes, and in acknowledging them, we are able to then be able to make a different choice in the future.
These are really great points, Nancy and Ellen. I just want to add, initially it could be easier to not to stop, look, or listen, and easier to blame. You know, our first reaction, oh, it's not my fault, or you know, not really think about what's going on. But in the long run, it's so beneficial to take that time to do the harder work and to think, well, what's my part in this? You know, what's really going on, and how can I be the best version of myself? So just throwing that in, easier at the beginning, but rewarding if you can do the hard work.
I totally agree with you, Lesley. That's exactly right. It can be difficult to take aim before we take action. And the first thing we can do is, before we react, is to reflect back what we heard the other person say. It shows that we're listening and that we want to create shared understanding. And our communication isn't complete until this happens. By listening attentively to the speaker, listening to their fact and their feelings, listening with our whole body and all of our senses, that's the first concrete action we can take. And as we teach in our parenting class, active listening has two parts: the fact of what the person said and what the other person is feeling. And when we reflect that to the other person, they feel heard. Once you reflect back what you heard, you check for understanding. Let's demonstrate. Nancy, are you willing to do that with me?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So, Nancy, what's your complaint about COVID?
Well, I actually have a lot of complaints, but I'll give you one that recently comes up again and again, and that is I have this specialty market that I like to go to. And in the beginning, when we were first ordered with stay at home, right before that, to get into the supermarket, you had to wait online, for a good hour or more. And not only did I not want to do that, but I was also concerned that maybe someone on that line had the virus and the store would be crowded. So I haven't gone back to the store since, and I really miss it because a lot of the products I get there, I like and I use, and, I've had to use other things. So I'm not happy about that.
Nancy, what I heard you say was that going to a store where you had to wait a long time, you didn't feel safe, you weren't sure if you would actually catch COVID by going to that store. It was very frustrating and continues to be frustrating for you. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm still afraid to go back.
Exactly, I hear you. So what I would do with speaking with somebody about their complaint is first I check, that I'm listening and not being distracted or reloading what I want to say. I want to let the person know that I heard them. And I did let Nancy know. And if you could see her, you would see that when I did acknowledge her, she actually smiled because she felt heard. It doesn't mean that people will always smile, but it is not very uncommon to see that happen. So you ask the person after you reflective listen or active listen, is that what you meant? If they say no, then you ask them to clarify it. But if they say yes, then you'll move on to the next step. So here's an example that might apply to co-parents. A co-parent has asked her children's dad to let her have the kids on his weekend to Zoom with her family on their great-grandmother's 90th birthday. He said no. She wants to complain. She has people she could complain to. But instead she stops herself. She looks for her options and she listens for her better self. She chooses to actively listen. It sounds like you don't want to reschedule your time with the children. And he says, yes, exactly. He doesn't want to change his schedule. And she understands that. Now, we don't have a lot of time tonight to practice the communication skill that often follows, but typically people ask. So let me just give you a quick example. After she's acknowledged what he had to say, and he says, yes, I don't want to reschedule, then she can use what's called an I message. And now an active listening response only has two parts, fact and feeling. I messages is a little bit more complicated. It starts with an I feel, when, because, can we? Let me fill that in given this scenario. I feel worried that our son and daughter will be disappointed when they realize that their cousins celebrated their great-grandmother's birthday without them, because they hate to be left out of fun times. Can we agree to have them Zoom for a half hour to an hour while they are with you? This is an example of negotiating. He may or may not agree, but at least they're working on the solution rather than just complaining. Let me pause here and give you a little favorite reflection that I enjoy. It's called What If? What if everything you thought was true wasn't? What if everything you ever needed to know was already inside you? What if you are already what you want to become? What if you were deeply hurt? What would you say? What if we deeply hurt each other? What would we say? What if we could live the questions rather than holding tight to our certainties? What if the unknown was the friendliest place to be?
Wow. I really like that, Ellen. Very, very thought-provoking. And it helps us to sort of dig deep. And when you do dig deep and think about, well, why am I acting this way? Or why am I feeling this way? What is the other person really feeling? It's very rewarding. Again, not easy, but rewarding to go a little bit more deeply than just being on the surface. So I would like to ask a question of our audience. Basically, do you practice mindfulness or meditation? Because we want to talk a little bit about this. So please vote. It's a yes or no answer. Do you practice mindfulness or meditation?
Well, we're getting some votes in, and it looks like most of our audience does do that. It looks like 57% do practice mindfulness or some kind of meditation, and 43% do not. So hopefully all will be in for a treat tonight, because we do have a short meditation, a mindfulness meditation that we'd like to do with you. It can be really very helpful for a lot of things, certainly to de-stress or to help you to maybe bring yourself back into balance when things aren't going your way. So such as you have a complaint and the complaint isn't answered in the way that you would like. So to do this mindfulness meditation, you don't have to sit like that young woman on the screen, but I will ask you just to put things down, sit in a way, in a posture that best embodies dignity, self-reliance, wakefulness, stillness, and stability. And when you're ready, just close your eyes. Just feel the flow of your breath as it goes in and out of your body. And notice where it comes in and where you first feel it. And just follow it in your body. And notice it as it goes out. What its temperature might be. How deep you might be breathing or not. You don't have to change anything about your breath. Just allow your body to breathe in and out, and just bring all of your attention to your breath. And just continue to keep your attention on your breath as it comes in and as it goes out. You might want to even consider putting your hand on your belly or your abdomen and just notice how your body breathes and how your abdomen may go up and down with your breath. Just follow your breath in your body. And again, you don't have to change anything at all. Breathe in, and as you breathe out, and I'm going to bring you guys back to the webinar. So when you're ready, just open your eyes, take your time, come back. I'll give you a moment to join us. Okay. So that was a meditation to cultivate mindfulness. And what mindfulness is, or a definition of mindfulness that came from John Kabat-Zinn, is the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And doing this on a regular basis, it can just be a few minutes a day, can help create clarity and balance in your life. Just like if you go to a gym and you exercise and work on your muscles, mindfulness can do the same thing. And meditation like that can help to cultivate it. But any single focus that you might have can be a mindfulness meditation. And I think that it can really be helpful, at least I know that it's helped me to feel less stress and less anxious during this time, as well as being more aware of some of the choices that I make and to broaden my choices. So.
Thank you, Nancy. That was really beautiful way of sort of wrapping up this evening's program. Ellen and Nancy, you just did a great job in doing a deep dive into these important issues and giving us a real way to sort of think deeply and why that's important and how that could really benefit our relationship with many people, not only ourselves, but with others, but especially our co-parents. And that is so important for your children, because when parents work together, whether they live together or not, whether they're in relationship or not, and are respectful, it goes such a long way for your kids. So I want to thank you, Nancy and Ellen. I don't know if you have any parting words, and thank all the parents out there who are with us trying to do the right thing.
Thank you, Lesley and Nancy. It's always wonderful to work with you. And I'm so much more relaxed now than I was just a while ago. The ability to just stop the mind, the monkey mind, and do that deep breathing was wonderful. So thank you for that.
Yes, and thank you, Lesley and Ellen. It's a pleasure to partner with you. And to the audience joining us tonight, I say thank you as well, and everybody be safe.
Yeah, be safe and well, everybody. Until next time, be in touch with us at FamilyKind if there's any way that you think we can be of support to you. Good night, all.